Good morning, y'all. This is Dana from Financial Aid Compliance Solutions, and welcome to Let's Talk Financial Aid for College. Today's show, I wanted to go over student financial empowerment, which I kicked off the week with celebrating a day of service in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday and federal holiday um, by doing a Insta live with my co-host. Well, she and I co-hosted the show. Her name's Teresa Harris of Scholarship Mama, and she is at I Am Scholarship Mama on Instagram, IGTV. And I had her as a guest host a couple of weeks ago now, I guess it was. And we have decided to join forces to promote the initiative for federal student aid, their student financial empowerment. That got kicked off during the training conference that was held last month virtually. And I had found myself signed up for the class, and there was about 5 financial aid professionals around the United States that had joined in with the federal student aid officials that were promoting the initiative. And so what we are trying to do is get the word out to financial aid professionals that we need to start educating our students to make them financially literate adults. And this initiative is actually going to be implemented in our children as young as grade school, because we need to do something about the debt that we have right now, federal student loan debt in specific, which is almost at $1.7 trillion. Now, that is a large amount of money, and as we have been told, the grants have been extended, or the grace period, I should say, has been extended for forbearance on the loans. So now, instead of them going back into repayment status as of the end of this month, the forbearance period has been extended to at least September 30th of 2021. So what this means is for the whole entire, basically, financial quarter, fiscal year. It's the fiscal year, because fiscal year for the government starts on October 1st and ends on September 30th of each year. The whole entire fiscal year, we will not be getting any taxpayer money repaid back into the system that was granted out for federal student loans, because right now they're in a forbearance period. Now, I understand that this is to help individuals who cannot make their payments currently due to the fact that maybe they have lost their jobs, and that job loss may have been a result of the current pandemic that we are dealing with in the world. But I just want to point out the fact that this debt is going to be ever growing unless we control it. So Student Financial Empowerment Initiative is to, again, try to teach our students to be financially literate adults. And the main mission is to, no matter what students go to school for, it's just so that they can be educated on how they can afford it. And that's typically not been the norm when it comes to students applying for college. I know this for a fact because of the applications I see on a regular basis, and some of them, it is with regards to the name of the school. And if you can get into an Ivy League school with your education and your your experience, and you're accepted to an Ivy League school, that doesn't necessarily mean that your family and you as a student are going to be able to afford that education. So that's when the financial literacy part comes into it, because you need to be able to live within your means. And I will say that, let's just put it out there. Most of America lives on credit. If we didn't live on credit, we wouldn't be able to survive, because a lot of us live paycheck to paycheck, and there is nothing in the reserves for if an emergency happens. So if the emergency happens, you pull out the credit card, you pay for the emergency, and somehow you're going to figure out how you're going to get that money paid back. That's on top of a mortgage that may or may not be out of your reach. And I was a mortgage lender for a number of years, and I saw how the applications were processed. And just because your debt to income ratio at the time you took the loan out and said that you could afford it doesn't mean that life changed, and those payments now are pretty much out of reach for you to be making. And if, again, with the pandemic and people losing their jobs, it's been a tough go for everybody. So as far as student loans go, those are typically the ones that get put on the back burner and don't get paid in a timely manner. So that can not only affect the student, but it can also affect the institution that the student attended. And so, having said all of that, it is very important that we start teaching our children financial literacy. Otherwise, our dollar here in the United States isn't going to be worth the paper that it's written on down the road, and that's just the plain facts. The other thing I wanted to also touch on is last Friday, NASFA held a webinar training, and that went over some of what was in this new stimulus package that was passed on December 27th. There's also another stimulus package, as we know, that is in the works, but the latest on that I heard was that it may not be even passed or reviewed again until March. The new administration, that the Biden administration that just was sworn into office on Wednesday, has still some things to put in place to get things in order to be able to even start passing bills. So as far as the stimulus package goes, the new one, that will not happen until sometime in March, unless if it happens sooner, I'll update everybody. But right now, March looks like that will be the target date. However, in the new stimulus package that was passed on December 27th, funds opened up again for institutions to be able to apply for and receive. Now, if you already had filled out the application for the first round of funding and you received that already, the funds will be deposited into your G5 account, and then you can allocate them according to the allocation table. Make sure that you are keeping track of how you are allocating the funds, because these are required to be included in the report that you need to submit back to the department, and also will be reviewed as part of your annual audit. So having all of that information at hand, you are going to be needing to, again, reviewing the allocation table that has been provided. The annual report needs to be submitted, and the other, and it's the first annual report is going to be due on February 1st. So you only have a few days left to get your information together to be submitted in a timely manner. And it requires the submission of the form through the ED's HEERFII Annual Reporting Data Collection System portal. If you have any questions whatsoever, you need to contact HEERFII Annual at ed.gov for login information. This applies to all institutions that received HEERFII grants, including all student and institutional HEERFII expenditures during all of calendar year 2020. So make sure that if you have not been able to log in, you've got to contact HEERFII at ed.gov for your login information so that you can submit that report in a timely manner. If you don't submit the report in a timely manner, there's going to be ramifications at the end of not reporting it, and that will result in some findings. And that could also result in a halt of any additional funding that could be accessible to your institution and your students if you don't follow the guidelines that are being outlaid for the funds and the required reporting. So again, make sure that you are on top of that and get those questions in as soon as possible if you have any questions. Also, with regards to reporting, there was also a deadline where everyone needed to be reporting. The coronavirus indicators needed to be updated for all your students for 2019-2020 award year. Those should have been completed by December 31st, 2020. And again, that's for 2019-2020. If your students left school and they withdrew from school because of coronavirus, and they were receiving 2019-2020 funds, as an institution who received those funds, you were required to go in to COD and put the coronavirus indicator on those particular students' files that withdrew because of coronavirus. And if you didn't get it in time and you missed the December 31st deadline, according to the training that was held last week, you can go in and you can still do the reporting, but there will be some type of finding for reporting late. But it's better to get them reported than not to report them at all. So if you haven't reported those coronavirus indicators in COD, you need to get them done. The next round of reporting for coronavirus indicator is for the 2020-2021 award year. That was extended until September 30th of 2021, so you still have ample time. But I would not wait until the last minute to get those files allocated under the coronavirus indicators. Again, if you have students that withdrew because of coronavirus, received funding from 2020-2021 award year, you need to go into COD and put the indicator on there to update those students' files. And like I just said, don't wait until the last minute, because waiting until the last minute just makes it harder for you to get the reporting done in a timely manner. So after covering those two major items, the other items that were presented during the training was with regards to the new Biden administration and what was going to be expected as far as DACA reversal and extension of the borrower payment interest relief, which I just went over, that has been extended until September 30th of 2021. As far as DACA reversal, that paperwork is still on the desk, and it may or may not be signed into legislation right away. I know that there is still, again, some things being worked out with the administration. So as soon as that is updated, or when it is updated, or if it is updated, I will pass that information along. There's also anticipation that there might be student loan forgiveness, and also rescinding ED's IFR on student eligibility for CARES Act funds. What that means is that there were some students that did not qualify for the CARES Act, and most of those students fell under DACA and also the undocumented students. And if they're undocumented, they don't qualify for federal student aid, because in order to qualify for federal student aid, you have to be either an eligible non-citizen or a U.S. citizen in order to receive federal funds that are funded by U.S. taxpayers. So at this point in time, there is expectation out there that these items may be passed in legislation down the road, but at this time, those items have not been passed. And then there was information provided by Consolidated Appropriations Act 2021. The department is now calling it the Corona Bus Act. For fiscal year 2021 appropriations, there's additional COVID relief funds coming. And also there was the FAFSA simplification and other student aid provisions. And this was also named as mini HEA. So for the fiscal year 2021 appropriations, 73.5 billion in discretionary funding was appropriated for the Department of Education. This has been increased by 785 million from fiscal year 2020. There was a $150 increase to the maximum Pell Grant award, so the new maximum for the 2021-2022 award year is going to be $6,495. There is no mention that the 150% was reversed, so assuming that that is still in place. So what that means is potentially a student could get 3 full payments of Pell out of the 2021-2022 award year. So just keep that in mind for your students. And I know that I have this week been reviewing files that have been coming in, and I had one file that one of my clients, the student qualified and was awarded Pell Grant from the 2020-2021 award year. They started they're starting next month, but the school contacted me and canceled the award because they want to get everything out of 2021-2022, which was on the file. It's selected for the process of verification. So if everything was accurate on the file, the information, and no corrections needed to be made, the student will get more aid. But having said that, the student has to wait to receive the aid because typically the programs are not released by the department to start processing funding for the new award year till the end of April, beginning of May. So just keep in mind that if you are going that route, just like this client did, or this school decided to for this student, that you're not doing the student any favors if you're making them wait if they're qualified for aid out of the current award year, because of the fact that they're not receiving any aid to pay for school. So it would probably be a better process if you would just fund the student out of the current award year and then get the remaining payments out of the following award year if they're crossing over into the 2021-2022 award year. So the rest of the appropriations, there was $25 million increase for campus-based aid programs. So that would be for your federal work study and federal SCOG funding if your school offers those items. And again, that impacts the award year of 2021-2022. Also, part of the 2021 Consolidated Appropriations Act included coronavirus relief measures for higher education institutions, $23 billion for institutions for higher education, $20 billion will go to public and private nonprofit institutions, $1.7 billion to minority serving institutions, and $113.5 million for institutions with the greatest unmet need related to the pandemic through FIPSI. $680 million to proprietary institutions, and less of 100% of the funding must go to students. So if you're a proprietary institution, you have to fund, if you receive those funds, that has 100% of that money has to go to the funding, to your students for whatever they need. But that needs to be offered across the board to your students. You cannot keep it for any institution expenses. As far as the fast facts go for the CRRSA, almost $10 billion more for higher education than in the CARES of $14 million. Higher education community requested $120 billion. It uses the same funding structure as CARES, HEERFII. And the Democrats have called this a down payment. So it sounds like based on that, there may be more funding coming down the road, which we anticipate will happen. As far as the additional CRRSA Act provisions, it extends provision allowing employers to contribute up to $5,250 tax-free towards their employees' tuition loan debt to payments made before January 1st of 2026. SNAP eligibility will not be limited for post-secondary students who are enrolled at least half-time and who are either eligible to participate in work study or have a zero EFC. And as just in HEERFII guidance, allocations and guidance made available by the Ed on January 14th, institutions that already receive CARES, student share, and institutional share funds will receive an email in the next few weeks regarding drawing down funds constitutes acceptance of the HEERFII items and conditions. So what that means is you get the email, tells you that the money is in your account. As soon as you draw down the funds from your account, then that means that you are now accepting the HEERFII terms and conditions. So again, you need to refer to those allocation tables and also keep track of how you are allocating that money out so that you can have your information together for that report that will need to be submitted as soon as they release the date for that, which they have not provided that. And it also just indicates institutions that didn't receive CARES student share or institutional share funds must complete the certification and agreement. So again, if you didn't receive the first round of funding, but now you're looking to receive this next round of funding, you need to complete the certification and the agreement. So you got to fill out the application before you're even going to receive the funds. So you need to get that in the works sooner rather than later. Institutions must spend supplemental funds within 1 year from the date of receipt. Institutions must spend at least the same amount on student grants as they were required to with the CARES Act funding. Allocation tables reflect the amount institutions must spend on student grants. Students are not required to meet all of the Title IV eligibility requirements. DACA, undocumented international, remain ineligible. And again, that may change, but right now that's in place, so those students remain ineligible at this time. Also, what was released was with regards to the FAFSA simplification. Now, this is changes for future award years, and the changes for the FAFSA do not take effect until 2023-2024 award year. So there were quite a few changes that were submitted with regards to the FAFSA simplification. And what this meant is fewer untaxed income items factored into the FM formula. Child support received will now be reported with assets. Change to who is reported as parent in cases of divorce and separation. There's going to be state and other tax removed. Small business family farm exclusion is going to be eliminated. There's no SAI split for the number in college. And SAI is now going to be the new EFC. So EFC is going away. and SAI is going to take its place. There's no asset questions for MTB recipients, and if your AGI is less than $60,000 and no tax schedules, AGI less than $60K and only a Schedule C provided. Schedule C gain and loss is less than $10K. And then expected family contribution, the EFC, is now Student Aid Index. SAI can be as low as negative $1,500 in order to receive Pell Grant. SAI determines eligibility for all Title IV aid except for maximum and minimum Pell Grant awards. So there's a lot of changes coming up for the 2023 award year. This is not something that has, been implemented as of yet, because right now, the back room, if you will, CPS, Central Processing System, they're going to have to put this all in place on the new FAFSA. So that has not been generated yet, and I'm sure that, as the time goes on or draws nearer to the 2023-2024 award year, those changes will be extensively gone over and instructed. But right now, that's what's in the pipeline for the FAFSA simplification. So we'll see how that goes. So I'd like to thank everybody for joining me today. That was a lot of information, I know, but I wanted to make sure I got it out there to you. And you can get a copy of this podcast and download it so that you can go over it with your members, and also staff members, I should say. And also, just keep in mind with regards to the student financial empowerment, it's a good idea to start putting together some ideas of how you're going to implement this. And speaking of which, I will be holding a training course on this on February 5th. More information will be provided to you in next week's podcast. And also, I'll be providing information on my social media pages, my LinkedIn page, which is under Dana Anderson. And also you can find Financially Compliant Solutions. There's a business page there where the event will be posted. If you haven't connected with me already on LinkedIn, please ask for the connection. I'll be more than happy to add you to my connection so that you can stay in the loop of the information. And as always, I wish everyone to have a great weekend, and we'll be talking to you soon. Take care and have a great rest of your week.